I say, what ho? This is Brian. Call me sick and tired of this cold and snow and shoveling and snow and winter gardener. Coming to you from Ice Station Zeppelin again. And you are listening to Ramble On Radio, episode 46, the only dedicated Led Zeppelin podcast on this or any other known internets. Be sure to go to rambleonradio.com for all your Led Zeppelin news and any links I might mention during the show. And subscribe to Ramble On Radio through iTunes. And if you go to iTunes, leave a review. Just drop in a quick review. It helps get me on the get this podcast on the iTunes charts, sort of thing. They're recommended. So that's, you know. You can listen at Spreaker.com. And be sure to follow me. I'm Brian, damn it, I think I am, or Ramble On Radio, either one. Follow on Spreaker. And check it out at on iTunes at I am Brian, damn it. Follow me as well on Ramble On Radio on Facebook, Google Plus, and Ramble On Blog on Twitter. So John Paul Jones was he played with Dream Syndicate at a stop at Todos Santos, Mexico. Todos Santos, Mexico. Dream Syndicate, I'd never heard of Dream Syndicate. I don't know who these guys are. But they're an 80s underground rock legends, 80s underground rock legends Dream Syndicate, is the way it's worded. I'm going to have to check them out, I guess. And they were joined by John Paul Jones and former R.E.M. guitarist Peter Buck. And Jones played the organ on their classic John Coltrane Stereo Blues. It's a song that they jam out a bit, can go up to 20 minutes, and apparently their version, and this was about a week and a half ago, Saturday night, and I think it was like the last Saturday in January. It went close to 20 minutes, and they broke into the doors, break on through at one point, and Jones had a big organ solo. He also played mandolin on Straight to Hell. Don't know if there's more. I've seen those two clips. But there you go. Jones finding these people to play with all the time. It's I wish Jimmy would do some of that. Don't you? Just play with some. One Saturday night, play with these guys and jam some songs. Why not? So good for him. And if you were lucky enough to be there, well, good for you. Meanwhile, Jason Bonham is taking his Led Zeppelin experience back on the road. I'm being a little quieter tonight. It's a full house. I normally do this in a quiet house, so I'm a little less, a little more sanguine maybe tonight. Plus, I'm exhausted from all the show. Trust me, I've been shoveling. Oh, Jesus. But anyway, Jason's Led Zeppelin experience is touring again. They're touring with Heart in the summer again. They're doing the Heartbreaker tour again, I guess. Plus, they're doing their own show. I think it was May is their own shows. They got a festival in Cleveland. They got a couple of festivals, and they're like every day there's another show. Huntington, New York. I think I saw something in Virginia. There's one in Florida. I think I saw Caesars Windsor, which is Windsor's across the river from Detroit, fairly close to me. So they're getting into my southern Ontario area. So we'll see how that falls out. They're also, they're doing the Heart Tours, Oshawa, which is east end of Toronto. But if you're in downtown Toronto, if you go west, you hit Ice Station Zeppelin here in Hespeler. If you go east, you'd hit Oshawa. It's similar distance anyway. So he's out there playing Led Zeppelin Experience. Is going to be on the road again this spring and summer by the looks of it, as is Robert Plant, of course, as we know. So it looks like we're going to have lots of opportunities to see some guys. And don't forget, if you're doing something, check out local bands that are doing Zeppelin stuff. Support those bands. Because as a friend of mine pointed out when I was at Get the Lead Out a year and a half or so ago, a lot of these bands, a lot of these musicians aren't going to be around in 10 years doing this stuff. So it's going to be up to the tribute bands and stuff and the other bands to do this, to keep it alive. So support those bands too. And, if there's a good one near you, Get the Lead Out here in our part of the world, for instance, is so good. So exceptional. But there's other ones that are excellent. There always has been. I know in England there's a couple. There's one that Peter Grant's son manages. There's just so many. So, if you're looking for a band to see, keep your eye open on the local ones in your area and do that. But yeah, Jason's going to be around. Robert's going to be about. And John Paul Jones will be playing anywhere. Jimmy going to be in the studio, I guess, remixing old albums or something. I don't know. So anyway, Sunday night, I'm watching the Super Bowl. And that's unusual. I don't normally watch the Super Bowl. I'm not a football fan. But my son kind of wanted to watch it, so I sat with him and watched it. And right at the beginning, I turn it on, and boom! Just as the opening drum break for When the Levee Breaks comes on, and there's Kurt Russell introducing the Denver Broncos. And apparently before that, Seattle was introduced by a Metallica song. And apparently it was Kurt Russell again. Captain Ron, Kurt Russell was introduced both teams, but it was Metallica for Seattle. It was When the Levee Breaks for Denver. So, if you're Peyton Manning, you got to wake up on the Monday morning and say, well, I may have got my ass kicked. I may have got embarrassed on national TV, but at least I didn't run into the stadium to Metallica. Hey, I got the Zeppelin. What more can we say, right? But then on Saturday night, we're sitting down and we decided to try to rent Rush, which is the Ron Howard movie about the Formula One in the 70s. And as I recall, now we never rented it. We're downloading it through iTunes, and it just, for whatever reason, it wouldn't download. After about an hour and a half, we gave up trying to see the thing. But as I recall, the original trailer for that had some Zeppelin in it. It first came to my attention because of that, I think. So that got me kind of working, mentally working. So lately there's been a lot of movie references. Somebody last week also mentioned on for badge holders only on FBO, and if you Google that, you can subscribe. It's a mailing list. The TV show Archer had a Zeppelin reference last week, and that's not the first. Let me thinking about Zeppelin in movies, Zeppelin in TV, the different times the songs have been used, or the references and things like that. And you're starting to see it a lot. You're starting to see not just the songs used, which is happening more and more, but little references, little inferences of Led Zeppelin inferences. And I'm a Californication fan, and I mentioned before they used the end of season 5, beginning of the last show in season 5. They used Dazed and Confused, but then also in season 6, middle of season 6, he's writing with this rock star guy, and he's talking to this groupie who is kind of the female lead through the episode. There's usually a kind of an offset female, there's the female lead is his ex-wife, and then there's always another kind of girl floating around, and that's this girl in season 6, and they're going over songs, kind of going album by, and he mentions like Houses of the Holy, side 2, song 3 or something, and she's no quarter, and actually she was better than me. I couldn't have picked what song it was based on what he said, and it's just a matter of song order, running order, but there you go. But I think the character in Californication is very much a Zeppelin fan. It comes up a few times. I wonder if David Duchovny as himself is. Certainly whoever writes or created it is. Because all the time there's episodes that are called... There's been an episode called So-So. There's been a few other episodes with the Zeppelin title built in. Matter of fact, there's a season where it's about 5 or 6 in a row have Zeppelin titles for their episode titles. Zeppelin songs for their episode titles. So it comes up a lot in Californication. And that's just one. Of course, we've mentioned in this show before, Satan Our Kingdom Must Come Down is used, Robert Plant, Satan Our Kingdom Must Come Down, is used on the Kelsey Grammer show, Boss. And we talked about that a year or so ago, how Grammer was at lunch with Plant and was talking to him about needing a show, or needing a song for the intro to the show. And plant suggested Satan, their kingdom must come down, and it actually works really well. Really does. Then last year, the show True Blood used In the Evening. It used it as an outro at the end of the show, but it also used it as the title of the show. And I guess in True Blood, that's true of the episodes. They're usually named after a song, and they usually have that song somewhere in the episode. And they did with In the Evening. And then a couple of years ago, you remember there was a fuss a couple of years ago, actually. Revolution, the show Revolution, got to use two Zeppelin songs, Kashmir and Since I've Been Loving You. And I don't remember how they used Kashmir. I did make a point of seeing it just to see it. But Since I've Been Loving You, the girl, Revolution is post-industrial world. It's after the bomb or something. And there's no electricity and that sort of thing. And this girl has created kind of a small electricity format. She's a science or something, and she plugs in a little CD player and throws on, and Since I've Been Loving You comes on, and this guy walks in the room and says, I never thought I'd hear music like that again. So that was used, and it's really in the background, but they bring it out for just a few seconds. They bring it up front, you know. And so I got looking this up. I got wondering about that, and I got looking this up, and the song that came up again and again, it turns out, is When the Levee Breaks. American Hustle used it in its trailer. John Carter used it in the trailer. Argo used it in the movie, but not in the trailer. These are all recents, right? American Hustle is this year. John Carter was last year, biggest bomb of the year sort of thing. Argo was 2012, was up for an Oscar contender in 2012, as well as Silver Linings Playbook, which used What Is and What Should Never Be. And then Fast Times at Ridgemont High also used Kashmir. But we'll get back to Fast Times at Ridgemont High shortly. But the interesting thing is all the usage of When the Levee Breaks. Like I said, American Hustle, John Carter used it. Argo used it. They used it on Sunday at the Super Bowl. I jumped from that to Kashmir, didn't I? And the thing is, you know, when I was growing up in the 70s, back when Led Zeppelin was a functioning act, I wouldn't have When the Levee Breaks wouldn't have been considered one of the big Led Zeppelin songs. And I suspect it's because it's funny how it's taken on a bigger life now than it certainly was then. And I suspect it's because, I suspect it's thanks to CDs. Like when you listen to Led Zeppelin 4, you listened to side 1. You throw it on and you listen to Black Dog, Rock and Roll, Battle of Evermore, and Stairway to Heaven. That's what you listen to. And that was common in the record era, that you had a side that you would throw on. You'd pull it out and you'd listen to it. And sometimes you listen to the other side, or sometimes you listen to the whole thing. But quite often you listen to sides. And one side would become dominant over the other sides. Side or sides, if it's a double album. I used to listen to side 1 of Song Remains the Same all the time, as an example. Hey, another movie that had some Zeppelin music, by the way, that Song Remains the Same one. Just a little bit of Zeppelin music, that one. And they do talk about how much it costs to get Zeppelin music. So, if Song Remains the Same wasn't put out by them, it would be an expensive movie to put together. But anyway, so once we got into CDs, people listen to the whole thing, right? They listen to 1 through 8 instead of 1 through 4 or 5 through 8. And I suspect that's where Levee suddenly became, people went, oh, wow, this is actually a really, really, really good song. But it's taken on a life of its own in the last 5 or 10 years that I don't think it ever had before. That's an interesting point. But yeah, so those, like I say, in 2012, we went through Silver Linings Playbook, Argo, right? And then Almost Famous had 5 songs. We talked about, I mentioned Fast Times, which is a Cameron Crowe movie, so it was Almost Famous. They used 5 Led Zeppelin songs in it. That's the Way, Misty Mountain Hop, Tangerine, Rain Song, and Branyar. But it also had a Stairway to Heaven scene that was where he, the main character, is trying to convince his mother that, this is really good music. And he sits her down and he puts on Stairway to Heaven, and they listen. And the whole there's a whole scene. If you go on the YouTube, I think it is, you can find it. But it was a scene that was cut. Apparently, he'd already used the 5, and he knows they didn't like using songs and their songs in movies and stuff. So he felt that having got the 5, that was pretty gracious, and he didn't want to ask for Stairway as well. But apparently it wound up in the later releases, didn't wind up in the theatrical release, but apparently in some of the reissues it is in there. And I'm trying to think of, I had the DVD here for a while. It belonged to somebody else, and I'm trying to think of that. But I've seen that scene. It's on the internet, and it's just basically they're sitting around listening to Stairway to Heaven. And then, okay, so where are we at? So yeah, so Fast Times at Ridgemont High, it's Kashmir, and what happens in that one is Vic Damone is talking to his buddy Ratner, and he's giving him his 5-point plan for making out. And quote, when it comes to making out, whenever possible, put on side 1 of Led Zeppelin 4. And I saw this movie, a couple of times, in the early 80s, not long after it came out and video cassettes themselves started to become popular. And I was watching it with a girlfriend. This would be about 83, 84. And she started to giggle. I didn't even notice this at the time until she pointed it out. So this is what Damone tells him. And then they show Ratner on the date. And he's driving to the restaurant, and they're playing Kashmir. He's got Kashmir on in the car. And she laughs and says, "Oh, he put on the Led Zeppelin." I said, "Well, yeah, but it's the wrong Led Zeppelin. He's told put on Led Zeppelin 4, but he puts on Physical Graffiti." So there you, so that's how it's used there. And then there's a couple other ones I have not seen. I just, as I was looking this up, these came up. There's a Tom Cruise movie called Oblivion, which apparently uses Ramble On. And there's another movie called Small Soldiers, it was out some years ago, apparently used Communication Breakdown. And also, as I was looking it up, I turned up a couple of a German one and a French one. There's a couple others that have used some Led Zeppelin in them. But that's primarily all there is to it. So, and then there's a show called Supernatural. And it apparently uses Led Zeppelin episode titles all the time. Traveling Riverside Blues and Ramble On are examples of the episode titles it uses. And the creator, Eric Kripke, has actually publicly stated that they wanted to use Led Zeppelin music, but it's cost prohibitive. It's very, very expensive. So they can't do it. And I guess if you want to do it all the time, it's expensive. If you want to throw it on once in a while, it's not so much, right? This is going to be a short podcast, because I'm almost out. But anyway, yeah, I thought that was, I just saw, as I saw the one, it's not something, like never on WKRP in Cincinnati or something like that, you never got Led Zeppelin, and for this reason, because they wouldn't allow it on TV. They would not allow their music to be used in that way. And Jimmy Page was quite adamant about, he would talk about those little 4-inch speakers that they threw into TV sets. Of course, now TVs are much better, and TV writing is much better. If you're worried about the quality of the show, some of the shows out there are phenomenally well written. Whereas, in the 70s, Good Times was Good Times. It's just what it was. Or, were you really going to allow Mork and Mindy to use 10 Years Gone or something? You know what I mean? And I'm not seeing it. So it's turning up more and more, and it's going to turn up more and more, I think. I think they're finding it probably a decent way to get themselves heard by a younger audience. And they can make a few bucks on the side. I bet you their costs has come way down, though. But it's getting out, and good people have their TV sets now have phenomenally, TV sets, basic $300 TV set now has better sound than a lot of stereos in the 70s. So you can't be saying, well, the sound quality is the issue, and which was what Page always said. And I thought I'd finish off, though, with one last one. This one, Seems obvious, but I had forgotten about it. And there's probably, I'm missing, I bet you, a pile of TV shows. I'm missing, I bet you, a pile of movies where at least mentioned, at least references are made, you know? I mean, there's been ones when I've gone, oh, there's a Zeppelin reference or something. I did forget a movie, Dazed and Confused, does not have a Led Zeppelin song in it, but it's possible that there is a Led Zeppelin reference in the title. I'm just pointing that out. But yeah, finally is Godzilla in the 90s there with Come With Me, which is really Kashmir, right? And Puff Diddy doing his version of Kashmir, Come With Me, and that's you know, that's out there. That's pretty much them too. So that's a final use. And yeah, go over to the Facebook page, hit me up on Twitter, and what did I miss? What did I forget? And what's your favorite use? Which ones do you like? Oh, and have you seen the movie I was trying to see this weekend? I keep forgetting what it's called. Rush. Have you seen it? Did they actually use the song, whatever song? And I'm trying to remember what the trailer. And I was looking it up and I couldn't find it, but I know they used Led Zeppelin in the trailer. I'm sure of it. But if anybody remembers, I'd love to hear it. If everybody's seen it, did they use? I'll see it in the next little while. But did they use Led Zeppelin in the movie? So that's it. It's a short one this week, but I've been shoveling. I'm tired. It's a long week. And by the way, I make the Ice Station Zeppelin crack. I wish I had this here. Hear that? An original version of Ice Station Zebra from 1960. I'm going to say 63. Yeah, 1963. That's it right there. It was my father's. We've been cleaning out my dad's house so through the fall and stuff. And this is one of the finds I had. And I got the cover fixed up nice. And I just read it last week. So I come by the reference very honestly this winter. And I'm just going to keep on using it until it gets friggin' warm. If I'm sick of winter, why shouldn't you be sick of listening to me talk about winter? So that's it. Ramble On Radio, episode number 46. Check out rambleonradio.com for notes in this week's podcast. For any Led Zeppelin news, reviews. Oh, I forgot one. I go to rambleonradio.com and I have from 1982, a cartoon. It is Bloom County. Bloom County is the greatest cartoon ever. The 80s were the golden age of cartooning, newspaper cartooning. Calvin and Hobbes. Garfield was just kind of new and interesting. Calvin and Hobbes, The Far Side, and Bloom County. Just phenomenal cartooning was going on at the time. And I mean straight up smart and funny. And this was from November 5th, 1982, and basically the wrong phone call. The Opus, the Penguin, picks up the phone, and it's a wrong number. Somebody thinks it's the radio station. And he's requesting a song. He's requesting some downright hoogie boogie rock and roll, or I'm gonna die. And then the request is Led Zeppelin Stairway to Heaven. Anyway, go to rambleonradio.com. I did post it. It's there. So that's it. Check out rambleonradio.com for any notes on this week's podcast, news, reviews, and any links I might have mentioned on today's show, which there are none. Follow Ramble On Radio on Facebook, Google+, Ramble On Blog, and Ramble On Blog on Twitter, at Ramble On Blog on Twitter. You can subscribe to Ramble On Radio through iTunes. Don't forget to leave a review. Listen on Spreaker. Don't forget to follow me. And check it out on I Am Brian Dammit on iTunes. And thank you for listening to Ramble On Radio, episode number 46. Remember, if you want to go backwards, pick up some of the old episodes yourself. I'm going to, after 50... I'm starting to clean out 10 at a time. So from 50, after 50, 1 to 10 disappear. After 60, 10 to 20 disappear. So I'll keep basically 40 to 50 episodes on the go at the site, at the Podbeam site, where they store these. Otherwise, they're going to disappear. So if you're interested in going back and listening to some of the old stuff, now's the time to do it. All right, thank you. Have a good week. I will see you next week. And they broke into doors, break on through at one point, and Jones had a big organ solo. He also played mandolin on Straight to Hell. Don't know if there's more. I've seen those two clips. But there you go, Jones finding these people to play with all the time. It's I wish Jimmy would do some of that. Don't you? Just play with some. One Saturday night, play with these guys and jam some songs. Why not? So good for him. And if you the way it's worded, I'm going to have to check them out, I guess. And they were joined by John Paul Jones and former REM guitarist Peter Buck. And Jones played the organ on their classic John Coltrane Stereo Blues. It's a song that they jam out a bit, can go up to 20 minutes, and apparently their version, and this was about a week and a half ago, Saturday night, and I think it was like the last Saturday in January. It went close to 20 minutes. I say, what ho, this is Brian. Call me sick and tired of this cold and snow and shoveling and snow and winter gardener. Coming to you from Ice Station Zeppelin again. And you are listening to Ramble On Radio, episode 46, the only dedicated Led Zeppelin podcast on this or any other known internets. Be sure to go to rambleonradio.com for all your Led Zeppelin news and any links I might mention during the show. And subscribe to Ramble On Radio through iTunes. And if you go to iTunes, leave a review. Just drop in a quick review. It helps get me on get this podcast on the iTunes charts, sort of thing. They're recommended. So that's, you know. You can listen at Spreaker.com, and be sure to follow me. I'm Brian Dammit, I think I am, or Ramble On Radio, either one. Follow on Spreaker, and check it out at on iTunes at I am Brian Dammit. Follow me as well on Ramble On Radio on Facebook, Google Plus, and Ramble On Blog on Twitter. So John Paul Jones was he played with Dream Syndicate to stop at Todos Santos, Mexico. Todos Santos, Mexico. Dream Syndicate, I'd never heard of Dream Syndicate. I don't know who these guys are. But they're an 80s underground rock legends, 80s underground rock legends Dream Syndicate.